During the live stream, this just takes a second. All right, and we should be ready to go.
Okay. Welcome everyone to the September 10th meeting of the Salem Public Art Commission. I will call the meeting to order, and we usually start with a just a welcome and an introduction of everyone that's here, including commissioners and guests. So maybe we could start, do you want to start here and then go around and then to the Zoom?
Sure, I'm Kathleen Davis Rice and I've applied and I'm the guest today.
I'm Kathleen Swarm. I'm the staff liaison for the Salem Public Art Commission.
And I am Susan Dagan, the chair of the SPAC.
I'm Brian Howard, the commissioner.
Carl Roth, Commissioner.
Chris Darcy, Commissioner.
Spencer Emmerich, Commissioner.
And we have a couple of guests.
Brandon Lucas, Operations Group Manager and Public Works for Street Maintenance.
Mark Bechtel, I'm the Assistant Public Works Director over operations.
Thank you, and welcome to our guests.
We have guests.
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. You were the stars of the show earlier, so. I know.
Schneider, President of Salem Parks Foundation.
Linda Beerley, Treasurer, Salem Parks Foundation.
And I apologize for that.
No worries.
The first time, that means it's a little disconcerting.
Multimedia display here.
Public comment, appearance of persons wishing to address the commission on any matter other than those that appear on the agenda. Do we have any public comment today? No. And that seems to be a trend. I went to my neighborhood association, I said, come and make public comments, so maybe we can get the word out there that people can comment on things that they're interested in.
I have a question.
Yeah,
When the agenda goes out and the email is addressed to the commission and interested parties, who does that go to? Who are interested parties?
Typically, it's just staff, so we'll go to people like the city attorney or any other staff here at the city that are involved in projects that are on our agenda typically.
Okay,
Sometimes there are members of the public, but not currently.
okay. That would account for not receiving public comment because we're actually not seeking it. You know what I mean? So just a thought as we discuss the public aspect of the Public Art Commission. This is stuff we should think about.
outreach, yeah.
And I mean, absolutely forward your emails to any interested people that you know, encourage them. As commissioners, definitely be the champion and forward those along.
Yeah, and I did announce it at my neighborhood association, so if anyone goes to the neighborhood association meetings, I mean, it's just one small venue, but way to kind of get the word out. Is there? Approval of consent agenda for today, for September 10th, and then the meeting is from the meeting of August 13th, and I need to make a motion that we approve both of those. Second,
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, passed. New business, Salem, Kaiser, Together, and Gateway sign update, Mark, and we'd love to hear from you. And we did get a preview of some of the sign designs, and thanks for following up on this.
Well, thank you, and good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure for us to be here. We embarked on this journey with the Salem Kaiser Together entranceway project here almost a year ago. And when we took a staff report to City Council and said, hey, this this masonry structure is being struck multiple times and it's just costing a lot of money to repair it all the time. Is there a cheaper alternative? But still find a way to keep the spirit of that Salem Kaiser Together entranceway moving forward. And so council directed us to go ahead with some more economical designs and to work with you, the Salem Public Art Commission, to get some design guidance on what types of design features or inputs we could use in those sign designs, and then work with the city of Kaiser to get their input and their participation. So over the last 10 months, that's what we've been doing. We came to you earlier and you gave us some input to look at the city's entranceway design guidelines that were already in place. And the features we took from those were mainly colors and just design features, things like the river and some other kind of design features. And so we looked a way to incorporate that. I'll say Dave Barker from our Administrative Services Division, he's one of our, what are they called now? Desktop publishing specialist. He did a really good job of putting together some design concepts, and we moved forward with them. We narrowed them down to 2 designs that just this traffic circle is actually a circle and a triangle. And so it's approached by traffic from 3 different angles. So hence there's always been 3 different signs on that masonry structure. One that said, "Welcome to Kaiser," as you were approaching from the north. "Welcome to Salem," if you came from the south. And then there was a sign that said "Salem Kaiser working together," that came from the southwest. So we wanted to continue to have that layout of 3 signs. And so, and we also wanted to find a way to continue that some of the design features of the previous structure in with the new signs. And so what we have come up with is there are 2 options for the "Welcome to Salem" sign. And the only difference between these 2 is the green borders or the gold borders. The features are still the same. Some features of the sign. The Salem, of course, that's the official city logo design for Salem. It has the cherry blossom, which is one of the official icons of the city. The oval is a reference back to the previous signs that were on the masonry structure. They were all oval signs. And then a tie to the river, which was one of the design guidelines. And then the color palette comes from those entranceway design guidelines. Same for the option number 2. It's just there's a gold border instead of a green border. The Salem, or the "Welcome to Kaiser" sign, Kaiser was more than happy to buy into the same design concepts, the use of the oval, the river. Their color palette, thankfully, is very similar to our color palette. And so there was no negotiation needed there. They're like, "Oh yeah, fine, just use our gold," and their gold was almost the same as our gold. And so that worked really well. The only thing with Kaiser was they wanted a certain font for Kaiser because that ties into their corporate logo. And we had a little evolution of irises. The first iris icon that we used was too plain. They said, "No, we use a bearded iris in Kaiser." So Dave Barker designed a bearded iris design. Then they came back and said, "Well, no, it's too beardy." It's too beardy, okay. And could you take some of the bearding away, but still keep it bearded? Dave Barker did a great job. He found a happy medium. They also said that they now have 3 stars around their iris. So their public art commission approved the sign design, and their city council approved their sign design. So this is pretty set at this point. And then we looked at the Salem Kaiser working together sign. And again, the feature of the river, the oval from the previous design, and it's just a combination of Salem, Kaiser, and the two icons. So that's kind of the theme. Again, it's all the color palette from the recommendations that you gave us. And I believe we've done a pretty good job of blending together the old and the new, and keeping these signs will be relatively inexpensive to produce compared to rebuilding the masonry structure. They will be on aluminum signposts, which are breakaway. And I won't say if, because it's just when somebody finally does run into these signs, they will be much easier to replace and cheaper to replace. We're talking thousands of dollars, not tens of thousands of dollars than previous. We've already redone the landscaping if you've ever driven by it. You know, the old masonry structure has been removed, it's been re-landscaped. There's footings for the signs, and all we need to do is fabricate the signs and install them. So two things. We'd like to get your thoughts. If we have performed well enough with this, we do want to take a staff report to council, but we want it to be an information report. We don't want council to sit there and debate green, gold, green, gold, green, gold. We would like to have your recommendation on whether the city of Salem sign should be green border or gold border. And staff does not have a preference. So I'll just open it up to chair.
Comments?
What's the material? Is this just painted on?
Yeah, it'll be screen printed onto an aluminum sign blank.
Okay. So the white will just be, won't be like too reflective or anything here.
No, there's no retro reflectivity requirement on these signs. They'll be right.
Not a requirement, you can't have retro reflectivity as a base.
But we're not required. We're not required. It's not a regulatory road sign.
Carl, was your question more about your concern that the white would be too reflective for drivers?
I'm just trying to picture it, you know, what it's gonna look like. It's just screen printed on aluminum, so I think it will be a little reflective. I think you guys did a nice job. I like what you've done here. Just trying to imagine it.
And do you guys have experience with white on road signs? You do screen
A
printed?
lot of our road signs are white and purposely retro
Yeah.
reflective. This would not be purposely retro reflective, so I don't think it would be a distraction. I think it would just be white. You're the sign expert, so.
Right, so the retro reflectivity in there would be nothing greater than what already exists in almost every sign you encounter in way. All signs that we install as a natural course have retro reflectivity, so all your speed signs are a white background with retro reflectivity. Stop signs have a white base with a red overlay with retro reflectivity, so it would not be, if it did have any reflectivity, it would not be any more than any other sign you encounter in the right of way.
Are these lit at night?
They're currently not lit. The original infrastructure out there was a hardwired system. And it was problematic with impact because then all of that gets disrupted and then it takes a licensed electrician to, we are wanting to pursue an initial install, judge the visibility at nighttime, and then pursue, if needed, a solar powered lighting system, something that can be installed with our own staff rather than having an electrician.
Part of our recommendation, I think, was that you look into safeguarding these from getting run over the way that they were, and also the safety of that area. Has there been anything done to make that and turn a little less confusing so that people don't go into the?
We do have coming from the north, we do have what we call delineator posts that now stick up and people have to literally run through them to get to the island. From the south, other than painting the curb, refreshing the curb, I don't believe we did anything from the south.
And I think long term, we were looking at doing another install Durapost on the south side. They have a small retro reflectivity component to them at the top of the post.
Do they?
It's not pronounced, it's two bands of reflective tape that sit on top there. We do kind of want to see how this works long term. There may be some other things we can do. We are constrained, obviously, with the topography and the geographical components there. There's not a lot we can do to change how the roadways come and meet each other at that point without a significant investment in the infrastructure that's kind of outside the boundaries of what we're.
The good news is it's been a year and a half and nobody's
It's
gone
knock
up
on some
onto,
wood.
nobody has gone up onto the traffic circle in a year and a half. So,
Since the sign's been gone.
yeah, so I don't know, I don't know what the psychology of that
Yeah.
might be, but that is the good news. We've gone almost 18 months without an impact.
I have a couple of comments on the designs. I really like the yellow because I think if you know, kind of squint at it and you're not seeing everything, but at least the yellow kind of pops too with the background there. So I would vote personally for the yellow. I'm wondering the Salem Kaiser, why that could be yellow as well. It seems like it might make sense to have them be cohesive in that way. I'm also wondering about the Salem Kaiser, why it was chosen to not use the branded logo fonts for the Salem and the Kaiser. That kind of sans serif bold black is, it's readable. But I think it would be more attractive and also more recognizable of the brands to use if it could work with the design.
We could see, I think David Barker indicated that there was only so much room within the oval to get the phrase working together, which we thought was important because that's what we used to be on the previous structure.
Yeah, it is,
Salem,
that Kaiser is,
and then the two icons.
that Kaiser is an extended, kind of an extended font, but I wonder if it was a way to. Yeah, the Salem could dip down, I don't know, I mean, I'm a graphic designer, so I
I mean,
kind
we
of.
could ask him if he can find a way to make it all fit. But that was his indication, was it was becoming a very crowded oval.
Yeah, they would have to be quite a bit smaller, but because the Salem is so recognizable already and the Kaiser as well, that having it a little bit smaller, I think you would still recognize the brand possibly, but
We can
I
see it.
understand the design.
If I recall correctly, he had some considerations about that as you lay them out, in order to get Salem to fit into its boundary space, if you will, within the sign, you have to shrink it and size it
Very
smaller than Kaiser, and it kind of leads to maybe a subconscious input that one is less important than the other. Whereas within this formatting, you have kind of an equal consideration between the two parties, that they're shared and equal responsibility. And if you hold true to their formatting, in order for Salem not to encroach into Kaiser's area, you have to kind of shrink that in size, that
Right.
it makes it lesser than maybe visually than Kaiser.
I wonder if instead of black, it could be.
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
You could do that.
And maybe a slightly, but I don't know what the font is in the welcome to, whether that's the same font as the Salem Kaiser or the working together font.
It's hard to tell because it's different font size.
Yeah.
And one might be bolded and the other
Yeah.
one not,
I
so.
think that's what it was. Yeah, same fun.
Yeah, it's just a bolder version of it, I think.
Brandon, did they maybe use a font from the
original sign, I believe.
original sign and not from the design guide?
When they were working together, they don't give a photo of the original, I may be mistaken.
Can we see the font from the design?
I don't know if there was a font.
There is font in the
It's
design
much-
guide.
it's much- It must say it somewhere what it is.
I believe so, maybe up here.
And I would imagine the city owns that font, so they'd be able to use it without purchasing it.
I believe it's included somewhere in the
Yeah.
design guide, it's several pages long, so.
It would be more distinctive than that blocky, whatever that is, something or whatever.
Okay, yeah, we can see if we can do that.
Does anyone else have an opinion on the colors?
Like the gold.
I think if it's the gold, it should be the same gold though. Like if ours is slightly different than theirs. I'd say just choose one.
My guess is they're probably the same.
I mean, they look slightly different on here, like even the blues look slightly different on the Kaiser, the water looks a little darker than the Salem
They,
water.
I mean, we were sent their, they were, the only thing they were really demanding of was that we kind of mimic their corporate logo as much as possible.
So their color, so I think the consideration would be there is, it's counter instruction. The instruction from SPAC is to follow our color palette. The instruction from Kaiser is to follow theirs, so somebody would have to acquiesce. In order for us to match color, somebody would have to give up their color palette.
But keep in mind, you'll never, you as a driver will never see both of those signs at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's,
Because you're gonna be, unless you turn around and go right back the other direction. And you'll never see the two side by side.
I think consistency would be important though, that they should be the same gold and the same turquoise and the same dark blue. I mean, it's, you know, even if it's a little off from the exact brand, I mean, they're close enough, don't you think? I mean, they're.
yeah, no, I think I can understand why each city would want to retain its, you know, specific colors, and since you would never see them at the same time, I mean, I think you could probably, if you have these in triangle and you walked around, I think you'd probably be hard pressed to find a difference when you're out there.
I kind of like the darker turquoise anyway. The darker gold on the Kaiser. Well. And in the printing process, is it a digital printing? So it doesn't really matter. It's not like you're using ink that you would have to change from like one like gold to another gold, or how is
Is
the
it a
printing
screen
process?
printing?
The vendor would choose, we're gonna eventually have our own printer, and our intent is to print through, and for us, it would not matter. Now, the caveat to that would be that if we ever chose a vinyl option for these signs for whatever reason, then it would matter, because you have to buy vinyl, right? In that, I don't know how familiar everybody is with vinyl printing signs, we're gonna cut out layers. That would matter because we'd have two different sets we'd have to maintain of vinyl for a very minimal amount of
Yeah.
allocation, right? There's not a tremendous amount of need for us for this exact color palette in vinyl.
Yeah, I would keep them consistent.
So are we willing to just, because I'm trying not to make this a 2-year process. It took 6 years to get the one on Portland Road. Sure.
Yeah,
Um,
which is not branded at all to any of these.
would you be okay if we changed our gold to Kaiser's gold?
I would be fine. But I don't know everybody else. I just think consistency is the.
And our blue to the Kaiser blue.
It's close enough. It's probably next to each other on the PMS chart, or we have slightly more cyan and a little more this, and it's, you know, I think it'll be fine. It's close enough. Any other thoughts on the Salem Kaiser sign, whether that hit that in the red or
We were just trying to use a variety of colors because the color palette had a variety, so, but we can go either way.
I agree with that. I think the gold would be better, especially, you know, if we're using the same gold. Great.
anything else you need from us? Any
I
other
don't know, do you need to make a motion or good enough? What's
No, because it's just an advisory capacity at this point,
that's fine.
so I don't know.
Yeah, if you would like us to just act in an advisory capacity, we can move forward without well,
Without-
without emotion, but without a motion. if you would like to have a formal motion
No,
from,
I think advisory's
Okay.
fine, but just to recap. You're all in favor of going with gold, not green, right? Go with gold, same gold as this gold. Same blue as this blue. And then this would be gold. And then you would like this to be blue. And then what was your direction on this?
To take a look at the font from the style guide
Oh, okay,
and
and
to
see,
see if that would work with the welcome to and the working together, and also for the Salem Kaiser, if there's a bold enough version of that font. To have those be more distinct.
so for all of these, well, that would impact Kaiser's sign though too, because these were all the same.
Well,
So
it looks like the working together and the Salem Kaiser. Maybe because it's smaller, maybe just on that one, if you don't
It's
have to
just
go
on this
back
one?
to the, cause you'd have to go back to the council, is
I'd have
is
to
that
go back to
you?
Kaiser and say we want a
Yeah.
different font, yeah.
So, but we could have the working together, make sure that we're matching what welcome to is in
Yeah,
font type. And whether the point, I guess, of right the boldness, if somebody's accidentally applied a bold to it, or why, try to figure out why.
Yeah.
If I'm hearing correctly.
Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah.
I think mainly it's the Salem Kaiser also, that font, and then it would make sense if working together could also be in the same font, but.
Okay, well, I think we have a list of things we can go back and.
Yeah, and if it's
Mr. Bucker
possible
would
to
know.
change the welcome to without a big,
I think the welcome, like not getting Kaiser involved again, I think is
yeah,
the best approach.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think let's just leave the welcome to.
yeah, okay.
and the
Uh,
gold on the working together sign as well, it seemed like the consensus.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be fine.
yeah, it's a,
Okay, we will, we're trying to work towards an October city council date. And then fabricate the signs and have them installed sometime this winter, I imagine.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your input, your participation,
Thank
and
you.
assisting us in this.
good for your patience for
No, it's even good.
Okay, moving on, unfinished business, Eco Earth Road, it says. Well, I guess the update, do you wanna give that update since you've been in touch with. With them, Kathleen, or?
Yeah, the most recent update that was provided to everyone is that project managers have determined that the next best step would be to obtain a second assessment for the repair and or restoration, and within an estimate. Initial contact with a second respective public art conservation, maintenance and restoration service provider has been made. If they're able to provide an assessment, an expected timeline and project scope will be shared once staff have that information. It's suggested that a public open house be scheduled after the second assessment is completed, so staff can confidently provide the public with accurate and complete information.
Will they just be going for one other estimate or two? Is there usually a setting in where they have to get 3 estimates for projects like?
Yeah, and that can potentially happen. We also, as a city, have what's called contractor of records. So we have 2 groups, ARG, the group who did the first one, and this second group, both as contractor of records. So we're able to go work directly with these 2. I think there's a number of things that could potentially happen in the future, depending on what that second assessment reveals, and potentially a third would be beneficial as well at this time because we have the second contractor of record. They're the easiest to just go with. Let's get them done fast, see if we can't turn around, get more information, so then we can feel confident about the information that we have.
Kathleen, when the city reached out to that second conservator, was that entity given a time frame for getting back to you, like a 30 days, or is it open?
I'm not sure, I can ask the project managers what the communication has been, what it's like.
Just curious in
Yeah.
terms of kind of, you know, forecasting what we might be looking at.
Mhm.
I just have to say that I saw it this weekend. I went on the Alzheimer's walk and there's nothing like the handmadeness of the tiles and all of the texture, and even as it is now, it's just glorious. So, I mean, not that we should keep it and let it fall apart, but if there's some way that we can maintain it with the tiles. About that, we hope for that. Anything else that you wanna?
When the second group was at, would they specifically address whether or not it was necessary to do a full asbestos abatement? That's,
I think they're going to address all components of it.
okay, and then, and will they be aware that there are pieces of tile that have been refurbished for the icons and that's their continuing work?
Yeah, I'll make sure that that's communicated because I think that's a big part of
Yeah.
it.
And we'll just say that the Eagle Earth continues to get fan mail.
Good, good.
Checks.
That's great.
Anybody else? Okay, moving along, our subcommittee reports, public mural and application reviews. Subcommittee, we know that they've been working really hard on this, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, so we're super excited to be able to present some of our research that we have been working with since the beginning of this year. So we've narrowed down a lot. I think we've talked about this a little bit, you know, kind of the scope, because I think we initially had 40 changes, that's unreasonable. So what our research kind of reflects today is kind of three things that we found in other cities. So what I would like to do, if everybody's okay with that, is kind of briefly go through each one and then open it up for discussion, because I think that's the most important part. So I'll make our research findings rather brief. We do have it it was in the agenda minutes. So we have, you know, you can refer to that, take that with you and spend some time. So just a quick reminder that we are sharing research findings only. These aren't recommendations, or proposals, just things that we have found that other cities are doing. Just to make that really clear on record. And so the goal is just to kind of get us all up to speed on the same page of what some of this means, because a lot of it's very confusing when you start reading city code and legalese and things like that. I know my eyes glaze over pretty quick. And it just took me reading it over and over and over to kind of have this make sense. So tried to structure this with the first one of three for our research is talking about artist copyright. So most cities let their artists keep the copyright. And then I have definitions of what copyright is and then what licenses are, because they all kind of get intermingled as far as the terminology, and people might use the wrong one. So from what I have seen, Salem, the copyright is assigned to the city. Once you sign the easement and contract, then they have copyright and full exclusive rights to that piece of work. And the artist still maintains some rights. Essentially, what I can find is that they can use it kind of in their portfolio. They could do social posts. They could say, I did this project, but that's about it. It's pretty limited. And we've talked about it a little bit before in the last couple of meetings, that this is not what I've found most cities do. Most cities, it's kind of the opposite. Usually the city gets a non-exclusive license, so they can advertise it, they can put it in literature, they can educate the public with it, they could move it even if it's a sculpture. things like that are very important because we do need things in place. But then the artist still keeps the actual rights to their own piece of work. And this is, cities like Portland, San Francisco, Denver, Minneapolis, Los Angeles, gosh, I had so many. I was like, find me 30 cities, find 40, like almost every city in the nation does this. This is a very standard practice. So, some of our laws just, or code were made a long time ago. And I just feel like, it's a little outdated in my opinion. And so I'm hoping we can talk about that. And I can answer a lot of questions about that because I've really digged into it. Then another finding was we've talked about before easement as well. So Salem has a 7-year easement process, and a lot of other cities that we looked into have 2 or 3 years, and some have no easement policies. Now, the reason why to me this is important is it just seems to be when I've talked to muralists and building owners as a citizen trying to put up more murals in Salem, that just is a perceived barrier. They see 7 years and it really scares them. They don't want to commit. Now, the interesting part is in the contract, it basically auto renews. So I like the idea of a 2-year to make that barrier of entry shorter, but then auto renew. So we're not assessing it every 2 years. There's no reason to do that. So essentially it's the same thing as 7 and renewing or 2 and renewing for a few renewals gets up to 7 or 8 years, but it is that perceived barrier that is, there's also instances where a place moves out of, we talked about, what was it, a hot chicken place. If they leave and that easement is still 5 years left, then that would essentially, I think, mean that the new business would have to have Dave's Hot Chicken in their building. I mean, there's all kinds of considerations to think of. We don't want to see businesses go under, but it happens. And how do we treat that artwork? So I think having a shorter window to look at it, that we could look at not renewing the easement. I like that idea. And like I said, a lot of different cities have done that. Portland, Los Angeles, and Eugene have shorter ones. I think Hillsborough just dropped it. Newburgh has 3 years, so this is not just other cities in Oregon, but also throughout the United States. And then the third one is sounds a little bit more tricky, but it actually protects the city. And a lot of our research when we were doing this is we kept in mind, we want to not increase staff burden because we all know that everybody here at the city is stretched really thin. So we were trying to stay mindful of the things of these 30 ideas that we had, or 40 ideas. What would be easy things to implement and not increase burden or put the city at legal risk, because that's also very important. So a lot of cities have the city collection, which is what we have, and then just basically a permit process that goes not into the city collection. And I think Portland does that, and they work with a lot of cities. Eugene does that, Philadelphia does that. A lot of cities have a nonprofit to help. So that would be not adding extra burden to a city, would be to have a nonprofit take care of some of that, just the permit process. But I do think it's a really good way. One of the SPAC's responsibility is to manage the city collection. So if we're not taking on, 100 new murals, and wouldn't that be a great problem to have in a year? That's a lot of work. It's a lot of, for a city, if the city had to take care of all of that. I believe I read somewhere that last year, Portland had about 25 applications, so as far as permit processes. So that's kind of a good scope too, like what are we actually talking about if we change this? You take a city the size of Portland and kind of just do some simple math that for estimation purposes, we might have 5. And again, really cool if we could have 5. We've talked about how important the First Amendment rights are and things like that. So these, a lot of cities to kind of, they have content neutral built into their city collection, so it's not really regulating, content, can't do that, it's First Amendment right. Same thing with permits, it's even, it's one thing that nonprofits have to consider is they're not saying no to content, you can't do that. And I kind of looked at like globally, when that has come up, and as far as First Amendment rights, it's less than 1%. It's like in the 10th percent of cases nationwide since in the 80s where that's come up. So it's not frequent, but it is something that we have to consider because even, and I think Kathleen, you said this a couple of months ago, even if you win the case, there's a lot of resources that go into that, going in. So we do want to be mindful of things that can spring up and what happens, but it's definitely works in a lot of other cities. And I guess I want to kind of open it up. First of all, Carl and Spencer, do you have anything that I forgot, or we just want to open it up to discussion with everybody?
I think you covered it very well.
Okay. And I kind of gave you the bird's eye view. The documents have resource links and more specific language as well that we can dive into. But I really wanted to just get it on kind of in the public record, which is what we have to do, is present a research in public record and then talk. So, anybody want to start? Yeah, thanks.
About the copyright, have artists in the past ever mentioned that to us, the mural artists? Have they ever balked at that?
So thank you, yes. So just yesterday, in fact, I talked to a muralist from Portland about doing a mural that would be, I believe, the biggest mural in Salem that we're hoping to complete in the summer of 2027. And I had to give the caveat of here's how the copyright is in Salem. And their quote, "Oh, wow." Like that's, like she was shocked. And then I said, I need you to know this as we move forward, that this is what's gonna happen is you're not gonna have copyright to your own piece of work. And she was very surprised. And again, I think it's one of those barriers where we're losing interest because, she could have said, she was very excited about the project. So she kind of was like, well, if that's what it is, I'll do it, but I don't like it.
Yeah, it's a big challenge. I mean, the city can use, pictures of say a mural on their website, right?
Yes.
They can use it however they want, but the artist can't, sell prints of it or, it's very limited in what they can do, which seems excessive to me.
Yeah, it's just not common practice. Like I said, there's, I think I wrote down at least 20 different cities that, and I could find 100 if we wanted to, of cities that do not do what we do, just as a comparison. So yeah, we do want to have language in there again.
So an artist who creates work in an addition, I mean, I was involved with a major sculpture that we got by an major artist who did little maquettes, and then you buy the rights to fabricate that, and there are a number of the same pieces around the country, that same thing. Have we ever come up against that? And obviously the estate of that artist holds the rights to it.
Yeah.
And would never relinquish the rights in that way. I'm not sure where the question is there, but let's say the artist would want to duplicate, let's say, one of the cube we have downtown and, and put one in Portland, the same exact piece.
So it's,
Is that, if they would obviously have to retain copyright for that because they couldn't
So that's
duplicate,
where-
but it seems that they should be able to, if they intend to have that piece as an addition.
yeah, so I think that's where the definitions come in handy, where the copyright is the ownership of the piece. And then they could grant exclusive license to somebody that could then reproduce it and use it. And that could have a term limit, or they could keep that piece of work. One of the examples I said was that the artist could grant an exclusive license to a nonprofit if they're helping maintain the mural. That's one thing that as someone that's trying to produce more realtors that I'm coming up with is the easement means that the building owner or the artist or the nonprofit that's helping them has to maintain the upkeep on that. And to me, the easiest way to do that is to, sell a print of it and raise funds for that. And there's no avenue for that whatsoever right now because the city has the full copyright. So it is very limiting in what can happen.
Does this apply, excuse me, to everything that we have in our collection? Or is it just mural?
There's probably no purchase agreement that was signed for most of the work in the city's collection. So it's
So it's a moot point, or
It's
so
kind of a
they
moot
don't
point,
have
or let's just say that Hilda Morris has a piece, a two-dimensional piece in the library. She's dead. The piece was gifted maybe 50 years ago. In my own humble opinion, the city attorneys do not understand copyright. They never exercise their right to reproduce or use images of work in the public art collection. So this is all kind of moot, but full disclosure, I serve on the Oregon Artist Series Foundation Board. Artists sometimes have to sign an agreement that involves the city. We advise them to simply cross out the copyright and just ignore it. The city in every contest that they sponsor, let's just say the Historic Preservation Annual Photography Contest, which I also recommend to people that they not enter because they have to sign that by entering, they grant their copyright for the photograph to the city, which the city can use without attribution and in perpetuity. That's stealing somebody else's intellectual property rights. So, in conversation with a previous city attorney, who is also an artist, who also crossed out the copyright section, he thinks that they just don't, there's never been a conversation with them about what this means and what the best practices are elsewhere.
So this is a good thing to get.
Bring up, yeah.
Bring up, absolutely, I never even was aware it was there.
And it's super low, there's really almost no risk. Like, currently, the city could take this sculpture, could put it on the front of a phone book, could put it on a welcome sign, whatever. The city actually doesn't operate like that. They don't think that way.
Right.
Um,
If they did.
so if we said you no longer have the right to use an image of this sculpture on a phone book, probably nobody would complain.
And if they have a non-exclusive license, they can put it in like education materials, they could still put it in, websites and things like that. Like, I do want to give the city some ability to do things. Yeah, with attribution, absolutely.
And also the artist should say, this
Yeah.
exists in the city of Salem and, with that credit as well.
Does that work to just cross things off in the contract when you sign it?
I worked in government for a long time. Yes, just depends on who the, end authority is.
Which is a good, way to get around it, but I think updating and having it the right way just makes us in the city look a lot better.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad you said that because that's a good thing to know in the interim because we all know that these things, don't happen as quickly as, people think, so.
I have a question, and I really appreciate all this information, it's super useful. So a lot of this is kind of positioned from the management, the kind of administrative side of things. As you were talking with folks, as you put together this research, these findings, did other issues come up? Like if a jurisdiction wishes to encourage mural development in a city or county or the state, obviously these are kind of controls that drive a program forward. Other things that could be, other factors could be, is the jurisdiction offering money? Is there a pool of money to support the development of murals or anything else? Are there capacity issues? So and Portland has done some things to solve this. Are there ways that a city can build a talent base within that jurisdiction, through a training or a workshop or support for people to get that training elsewhere so that there's a pool of people who might be experts, like a Blaine Fontana is who did the Waldo Stewart's piece. Did any of that, as you talked with people, did people say, well, we were able to do this because we actually in parallel, we trained artists for what to look for, what to plan for.
I believe that that's where some of the nonprofits assistance helps, is where they've kind of become like not a mentor, but they kind of help guide, especially and some places, I believe Eugene, and maybe Portland, I would imagine, as well, has like special programs for first time muralists and incentives. And of course, Portland has a bigger budget, and I think Eugene does as well.
And a discrete nonprofit for murals.
Yeah.
In Portland.
Yeah, so they have a lot more, I think RAC would grant 2,000, a certain percentage, they would vote and then give funds to help start, which I think is an amazing goal to have in the future, for sure, but we kind of want to look at it, in my opinion, just like the lowest barrier, like what can we change right now to like get the ball rolling?
This really is.
Yeah, no, but I think they're really good and important, especially, and then getting more diverse voices, I feel like is also very important. A lot of people are intimidated in this, especially if there's a language barrier and they're a new muralist, it's really hard for them to feel like they even have any kind of chance. And I can barely read legalese if it's your second language.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
I think the other thing that came up too is like with Eugene, they have on their website, a program where muralists can find people looking for muralists, and people that want a mural can find muralists and
Find a wall
together, So that's outside of this scope, but I think that's, could be another way to.
I could mention that.
Yeah.
I'd like that'd be a great
and
long-term goal as
and
well,
then
to be
again,
kind of preparing.
and that again could be, I would hope, a role that a nonprofit could fill, because again, the city, isn't able to have a dedicated staff to read the website. We asked about changing Keith's name to your name. I don't think that's happened yet, so.
Still working on it.
Still working on it, so that's in my mind, it's probably, everything's harder than it seems, but that seems like a smaller task versus a whole matchmaking system.
Yeah.
I know that the full disclosure, the nonprofit that I'm involved with, as one of my many side things, is looking into seeing what that would look like, what a matchmaking process would look like, and then sharing it with the city. I don't know exactly, we have to first develop it and say, hey, here's something that we've done, and then figure out what that partnership would look like, but I know it's a big priority, and I just don't think the city could do it, unfortunately, as much as I think it would help everything. So there are other avenues that we're gonna have to hopefully have either people step up, or again, we're the sounding board, reach out to another nonprofit, Art Association, what can you guys do to help, the problem is everybody's stretched really thin. It isn't just the city, it's also nonprofits are really thin. Our capacity is limited.
I did want to quickly just point people to some information.
Yes.
Hopefully we're all very aware of the Salem Public Art Commission webpage on the city website. If you're not familiar with the city website, it's cityofsalem.net. You can always use the search bar. You can even put in public art, and then you can go to the Public Art Commission page from there. It's also in the boards and commissions. When you go down to this page, you can find, and I pointed this out, our policies and guidelines are very important. They're going to spell out a lot of information there. So if you bring up our policies and guidelines, you go down to this is for public art to be added to the public art collection. Our acquisition policies and procedures, you can scroll through here and we actually have it here are titles of works of art. So if you guys are wanting to know the specific language when it comes to the title to the work of art, including copyright, this information is here. I won't necessarily take the time to read it out loud to you now, but you can actually read the word for word what the city currently requires for any art that is added to the public art collection. I'm not aware of when this was added, so I'm sure there are pieces in our collection that were added to the collection before this. But find that information there.
Thank you.
And there are in the best practices of acquiring works of art. The buyer can actually allow the artist to retain the copyright for the work that is being acquired. My guess is that the bulk of the city code regarding public art was created at the beginning of the establishment of the Public Art Commission and put together probably by people who might not have had any public art experience. And so reviewing this code, should happen.
And I will say that we're not alone. There's a lot of these cities that we researched, they have changed their policy. It's not like we're decades behind, there's some of these just in the last 5 years have changed. So I definitely don't want it to seem like we're like, oh my gosh, like we're a little bit behind, but we're not alone in that. It happens all the time, and that's why it's good to have these discussions to talk about what we can do to modernize it and to make it more attractive for an artist and a business owner. Because I think almost universally throughout this board in the community, whenever I talk about you want more murals and say you want more public art, it's a resounding yes. Right. So, and I think city and staff, I feel like have that same thing too. They have concerns that we want to talk about, and that's risk and workload, which is very important for sure.
It does say here though that the artist may retain non-exclusive right to make productions of the work of art for professional advertisement or promotion.
Right, so that's put it on their portfolio, put it on their social media, and that's it.
Promotional.
Yeah.
Could that be putting on a t-shirt?
No. I'm not selling it, no, that's not a non-exclusive, that's an exclusive license. So that's the difference, to make sure we know what that means when people ask us. The non-exclusive is you can't sell it, you can't profit from it, you can't distribute it, you can't do things like that. That's an exclusive license, so that's a big difference, and that's what I think, there is some confusion, even possibly with some lawyers. I don't know for sure, I want to speak for them, but where that might be, they're not, because I think I've been told that, oh yeah, they have rights, but they do have no rights, but they have limited rights compared to other cities, most every other city in the nation.
Kathleen, do people even call the city about murals?
They've been doing it a lot recently. I think in the last month I've gotten
Oh,
3 different inquiries, and
great.
I'm hoping it's because you guys are kicking up the dust a little bit.
Yeah.
And I have been getting more inquiries lately. And some groups I think more serious than others. And they're all right now, it seems like, at the stage of identifying, okay, do we have owners on board? The owners of the property, are they on board? And then a lot of these people who are coming to me, it's probably 3 or 4 in the last month. And out of the 3 or 4, I'm going to say 3 were groups with the idea of like, hey, I want to see more murals. And then the 4th was a property owner. And so the 3 of the 3, then it's a group decision of like, okay, what kind of art do we want? What do we see? What is the vision that our group has? Like, we have this idea for a mural. And so they're kind of in those beginning stages. So, I mean, with your mural too, added to that, I think there actually is quite a few pretty serious groups that are interested. And it seems that with my initial inquiries too, there also have some real potential buildings and properties identified with the owners in communication. So
Yeah,
hopefully.
mine's pretty serious.
That's great. I'm very encouraged to hear that.
Any more comments on the subcommittee research findings?
What are the next steps?
These are next comments.
So if it's my understanding, subcommittees can only present research, so that's what we've done. And we've talked about it. Am I correct that once we kind of talk about research, it's possible for us to then possibly come up with a recommendation that we could give a city councilor if they would interest? Because they're the only ones that can make motions to like have city staff look at things for changes, right?
A lot of this doesn't necessarily need to go council. A lot of it is, hey, the next step is if the commission here is in agreement that they would like the copyright, that's the thing. Can we have a city attorney take a look at what our current copyright is? This is what we're understanding. We're wanting to see this specific direction be taken. Then we can do that. So if and that discussion happens here, that
Has to be a public forum,
yeah,
right?
okay, this is what we're wanting. So I think that if you're wanting to kind of keep moving forward, like let's say with this copyright one, that's the next one, that's what the next step from my point of view would be to identify what is the ask or what is the direction that you're wanting to go. Have you identified, okay, what we're looking for is, it seems like all these other cities do it this way and we're wanting it to be a non-exclusive license is what we're asking for, rather than a copyright. This is what we think is more appropriate.
The artist retains copyright, has exclusive license and ability to distribute that, and the city has non-exclusive license to keep the things safe that the city needs to have. That's my, what I would like to see.
Great, so should we make a motion at this point to say this is what we would like to have the city attorney examine and this is what we'd like the outcome to be?
Yeah, you can definitely make a motion for that research to be passed on. If you have a specific direction you would like them to review and see if that's a possibility of having the city move in that direction. Of course, we can't guarantee it will happen, but if we could at least have very specific, hey, this is what we're seeing. This is what we would like to be examined as a possibility, and then they can review that information.
I have a question. Would it be just more strategic to review all of the code in the mural section? Or the mural section of the code to see whether, instead of just giving them, here's one question, maybe we have 3 questions, and would it be better for them to deal with the 3 things under murals at the same time and come back to us than do it piecemeal? That's just a question.
I think that would be a good way to do it as well.
Like maybe this working group should, or all of us should go through it and just say, well, what about this or what about this? I confess, I didn't think of that before this meeting, but because the city, they're not quick, so even if we took a couple weeks to bring something back at our next meeting and then give it to them, given the pace of things, that's.
Brian, haven't you been doing that with other things too? I mean, I know that these are the 3 that your group brought to us, but were there other aspects that you also wanted to?
I think why we kind of decided on 3 in this, and I could be wrong, but this was a little bit with Kathleen's guidance is, we want to find that balance of not giving them 30 things. Because I would love to see 30 was phase 1. I probably had 30 more in phase 2 in my own personal before, when I was researching stuff. So we were trying to condense this as much as possible and make it manageable, but I think 3 is a manageable number. And like I said, we tried to kind of consider the maybe what I would consider, an easy win in comparison, right? Easy's a word that doesn't mean easy.
Yeah.
Easier than other avenues, you know, than creating a whole new website and creating whole new structures of code, you know. And specifically, just so we're all on the same page, it's section, you know, chapter 15 is the public art in the city of Salem's code, and it's 15.050 is specific copyright code. And it's, you know, it's only a couple sentences, 2 or 3 sentences. So it's, you know, that's what I'm hoping specifically is changed. There are some confusion too. Some of the code says one thing, like the easement, I believe, in one of the instances between the contract and the code, it says once the 7-year easement is up, then the painting needs to be painted over. It's how it reads, which is very confusing. In the contract, it says it's renewed indefinitely, essentially, unless one of the 2 parties at that 7-year mark wants to change it. You know, so those are other things as we update maybe to 2 years to make them consistent. So they and that they just that renews until one of the 2 parties want to change that. Because I think you know, I've had people start looking into that and get very confused. So updating that language as well.
I'd suggest that patient, that person that I am, that I think finding number 1 and number 2 are pretty clear cut as far as changing it to non-exclusive license and changing it to 2 years. The third one, because it might involve third parties and, you know, other, you know, free speech issues and things like that, is a little more complicated in our ask.
Yeah.
But I would recommend that we go ahead with asking staff and legal to look into the fact that we would like to see the non-exclusive license and the 2-year easement and get that moving.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a wise way. I think you're right. The third one's a little bit more complicated. And I'm worried if we, you know, throw too much out there that maybe, you know, it's sort of buried, you know, so there's just a couple, I think, pretty clear cut things, should be able to get so sooner.
And I'm optimistic that they're gonna be okay with these things.
Yeah.
It might be pretty easy to do.
I would hope so, yeah, because I think that the like I said, the copyright is pretty well adopted in most every other city in the nation. And really the easement is just changing from 7 to 2, but it's keeping everything else in place.
Yeah.
It still renews after
Yeah.
2, but it's that, again, it's that perceived,
Yeah.
what that seems like commitment, you know, 7 years just seems scarier too. But it's still protected by renewing and not creating, we don't want to create paperwork every 2 years for everybody's, you know.
So can we have a motion that includes these 2 things? Can someone who's a better wordsmith than me?
Sure.
Motion?
Sure, I would, and maybe Kathleen, you can help me a little bit on this wording, but I would motion that to have city look at 2 of our findings and possibly we would like to change that the artist gets copyright of their work. Right now, they only get a non-exclusive license. We would like that switched where they get copyright and exclusive license and the city maintains non-exclusive license. That would be the first part of the motion. The second motion would be to update our easement process to be 2 years that renews instead of 7. Pretty simple.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion passed.
Okay.
Yay.
I'll bring her to the city attorney's office.
Really wonderful. And then we can revisit the
Yeah, I would say it is more complicated, but it also doesn't have to.
Yeah.
You know, there's you know, I'm just not sure how to propose that idea. You know, even if we're open to the idea of having a city collection and a permit process that's not in the city collection. I don't even know exactly how to propose that in a motion. You know, the other stuff, you know, partnering with a nonprofit and things like that, hopefully could come soon after I've talked to my nonprofit again, and it's considering.
I think would that be something that would come more from a counselor or something, that kind of proposal of doing this kind of peer program?
Like a referral program.
Yeah.
Like we're a matchmaking program.
Yeah, something like that.
So in my experience working for the city, one thing that you're going to run into is that the city can't be in a position where they're favoring one person over another. So the city can't be put in the middle of saying, this muralist is fantastic and wonderful, this one not so much.
Yeah.
We can't be in a position where we're grading people, so it would have to be, if the city were to be involved in something like that, it would be an open to all situation. So it would be a difficult thing
Yeah.
to do in that regard.
If they engage a nonprofit to make those kind of decisions and just, I'm just wondering how this kind of program would move forward.
Yeah, and I think there would be a lot to that. And I can't say for certain what that would look like for the city to be in a position to say, we are officially partnering with this nonprofit who is doing this. Nonprofits can exist, and I'm sure a nonprofit would be really well fit to do something like that. I can't speak to how the city would then interact with that on an official basis.
Yeah, I guess there would have to be a permit process established, right? Because that would be separate, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not separate, maybe it's just, there's, what other cities have done is there's two avenues, there's the city collection, that's kind of what we have, and then there does have to be a creation of, or there's just filling out permit processes, and then it is the management of that I don't think the city has capacity of. So I think that's the bigger ask, that's where we have to have some nonprofit champion, but the city would have to establish what a two-track system looks like.
And
We don't, and really it's establishing one new one. We have one, we just need to have them. So I guess the motion would be like, look into what a separate track that doesn't go into the collection, creating a permit process and what that would look like and how much work would it increase. And then I guess a nonprofit would say, I can help with that process, but then, there's gonna have to be a contract. There's gonna have to be that's a big process that the city and that partner, because even RAC has changed how they do things with working. I'm sorry.
Well, there, with the street painting program, I mean, that could be
Yeah, that was more
somewhere
of a
for them to
permit
start,
process.
because it is permit, it is content neutral. It is managed by, of course, but it still exists within the city structure as a program. So maybe there's somewhere to go from there, even though it's different.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance to
Yeah.
every component of this, so, and I know Chris has her hand up, so I'll go to her in just a second. I wanna just quickly, for point of context, remind everyone that the street murals are only on streets which are owned by the city. So the city owns the location that the art is on, which is different than if the city were to be painting on something that they don't own. So now there are that's what the easement part helps do, right? Is the person who owns whatever the art is on, that's the relationship there. So there's a lot to keep in mind, but that's one facet of it. And Chris, did you have something?
I just wanted to make a comment related to the comment that you made about the city having to remain neutral and not favor a certain vendor over another. There are examples, at least on the state level, of pre-qualifying artists who are interested in public art opportunities. So the state of Oregon actually has a public art roster that artists can apply to be part of, whether they are doing architecturally scaled work or public sculpture, site-specific work. And then that pool of artists can be a resource for groups that are looking at a public art commission. So that is an option. In the city, I only wish we had multiple public art opportunities that, you know, where helping to clear a path to the selection of an artist was like an issue. I mean, I would love to have 10 mural projects going on at the same time.
Yeah.
You know. But anyway, there are some best practices in other areas where, you know, you can create processes that let the jurisdiction remain neutral because there is a pre-qualification process. Like the pool of conservators, for example, who the city has deemed to be operating at a certain level and then wants to do this to them.
And I want to reiterate that, you know, I believe Portland had 25 permits pulled last year. You know, so that's just a good gauge too. What does realistic workload look like? To keep in mind, you know, and maybe it's finding other cities and finding out how many permits, what does that actually look like? You know, Eugene is a little bit closer to our population, so, you know, how many permits were pulled there? Was it 25? Was it 10? Was it 5? You know, because I think for nonprofits or city, that's an important measure of how much, you know, what that increased workload looks like.
Would you be able to come back to us next month with more information about your finding 3 and maybe with a recommendation?
Sure, yeah, we can look into like more numbers on specifics of that.
Okay, great. Any other comments? I think we probably should respond with.
And I have to leave at 1 o'clock today, so
Yeah.
just.
We put this off last month, so I think we really need to go talk about the unicyclists. We have a repair estimate of $9,200. That's the piece that was in the chambers. There it is.
And Spencer, can you see this picture of that sculpture?
Yep.
So, yeah, discussion.
How did this become damaged? You know,
We do not know.
okay, I don't know, that's why I just
Where's
wanted.
the actual damage?
It's throughout. Can you zoom in?
The cracks.
Picture, I don't know if we can see it. I might be able to.
Yeah.
You can see it a little here.
There are multiple cracks that have bad repairs.
And this is for all of the entire. How do we feel about
And
that?
I believe the
Right.
conservator, what they would do, and I'm going to do a terrible job explaining this, but they're actually they would submerge the entire sculpture to remove all the laminate. And they would take it apart and re-laminate it because the laminate is also aging and failing. So you'll see cracking and yellowing of the laminate. And that is, it's kind of described in the agenda as well, what their findings. And what they would be doing.
It's kind of a ship of Theseus sort of question, right? At some point, you know, it's still the same piece of art. So they'd be they basically strip it down to bare glass and then go back
And rebuild it.
With the color as well, or just, is it colored glass or is the laminate the color?
I think it's colored glass.
Colored glass.
Okay, that's, so,
So this does date back to the original show at the Civic Center, that era, 1972. So it's 50 years old plus. The artist was pretty prominent, represented by the Russo Lee Gallery. I would say this is not, it was a gift by the Zonta group, which is a women's civic group. I don't know what kind of prompted the gift. I don't think this piece would be a highlight of the artist's work over his career.
well, I guess the choice is either to restore it or to deaccession it.
That's where we are.
That's where we are.
Is there, I mean, I'm just throwing this out there. Is there a way if we restore it to make it less fragile?
This glass.
Yeah. And that's the number?
Yeah.
That's the total, yeah, that's the proposal.
Has it ever had any conservation done previously?
Not that I can find.
But someone must have glued it back together because there are cracks.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking earlier. So I don't know. I'd love to know what happened to it. I think that this piece was in the sculpture show at the convention center, which was the 5th in the series of mayor's invitational exhibits. That would be about 2011-ish. Heavy on the ish.
I don't know if this is helpful and you can never know what the internet is telling you if it's accurate. But I did find a website where this piece was sold. It's reporting that it was sold for $1,300 and the measurements are 31.5 inches by 38 inches by 17 inches.
Can you zoom in on that image?
What is the size of the inside listing?
Maybe.
I'm gonna say it's like 3 feet
It's a lot
tall.
bigger.
Oh, 31. Well, is anyone familiar with O Gallery?
With which gallery?
That's the name of it. Basically, it's an auction house in Portland.
Yeah.
They move a lot of decorative arts, jewelry, anything. The fact that it sold for $1,300, it's not. I wouldn't use that as an indicator, because sometimes there are incredible deals, sometimes there aren't.
It says it's worth 25 to 30. Estimate, what it was worth and what it was sold for.
And that's all information you got from Russell Gallery, the Russell Lee Gallery.
This was just found on the internet, so.
Did we contact
Yeah, contact.
Russell Lee to see if they are still representing the artists or
They're still representing the artist.
Well, he is dead.
the estate?
I know that there might be one piece by this guy on their website.
No. I would say that we should go ahead and restore it. I mean, it has a presence, it's from the original grouping, historically. I remember seeing it in council chambers and liking it, and it has a presence, it's colorful, and it is by a sort of major artist. As far as the cost, I'm not familiar with what these things cost, but if that's what it costs, it costs. And we have the budget for it. Right? So I would recommend that we go ahead and do it.
Would it have a designated home? Once we do this.
Well, we're going to the civic center next week, committee, and we can see if there's a spot we could identify for it that would be safe and that
Protected spot.
protected and safe spot for it.
It probably would require a new base, just because the base is pretty unattractive. Is it easy to pull up the appraisal that was done of the collection to just see what this piece was appraised at? I should have asked that earlier and I just kind of was reminded.
I could probably find that if you guys wanted to chat amongst yourselves for the remaining 5 minutes, I could probably pull up the appraisals.
That would be great. Then if
Have a
this is
general
a
idea.
$4,000 piece,
Yeah,
I really wouldn't spend $9,200 to fix it,
yeah.
because it's broken.
And realistically, we do have a substantial amount of works from the 1972 collection as well, so it's not like this is the only one. Original.
While we're waiting, I sort of was wondering whether we should have a subcommittee for repairs and inspection of all the works in the collection. It's a big thing, but it's one of our main responsibilities, and things are coming in dribs and drabs. Chris, you notice things, when you walk around the city, and then it gets put on our list to look at, but it does seem that it needs to be done in an organized fashion.
I don't get a vote, but I love that. As the staff liaison, I think that's a great idea.
So is there anyone interested in being on that committee? Subcommittee?
That's the trick.
Yeah, I think-
I'm not, I don't have, I just don't have time.
Yeah, I don't know.
It would be really good, I think, for someone from the city, because the city is so risk conscious to do a quarterly walkthrough. There are not that many buildings with art. You got the city center, you got the library, you got the convention center. Got
In downtown.
3 pieces downtown. To once a quarter, take a walk, report back.
Is that something that we can ask staff?
Kevin doesn't like that idea.
I mean, actually, it's wouldn't it be public works, would it be public works who would be doing that? And then maybe one of us could walk around, I mean, certainly I can walk around once a year, once a quarter or something. Could walk around.
My suggestion would potentially be that we put it on our annual calendar. And then it's scheduled once a year or twice a year or whatever it is. To go and do that as a group, and whoever can attend. And that way. This is
And even if we started once a year, that's one more time a year than we're doing it right now.
Well, yeah, realistically, everything should be conditioner.
Right.
So,
Oh, wow.
I found like
$25,000.
10 conditioner.
Well, how about
reports.
that?
I don't know. I do not, you know how, let's just say, an appraisal is
Yeah.
a point
Yeah.
in time analysis.
Yes.
If you watch like the Antiques Roadshow, people will say, this was the value that was cited in 2000, now it's worth a third of that, or maybe it went up. I don't believe that this piece was ever valued at $20,000.
Does it diminish the value when it's been completely restored and reassembled and it doesn't have the original? You know, I assume there's some subjectivity when you're choosing the new vinyl and colors and things like that would go into it, and does that make it sort of a, not the original piece necessarily, or?
No, it just means
It's different than an
Okay.
antique, yeah.
Just means it's been conserved.
Okay.
And my guess is paying someone professional, getting them down for it, stores that.
Yeah.
If we did it with colored tape. It's worth it.
Yeah.
The estimate is from a very reputable conservator. I know, I don't, and his method seems appropriate given the work.
Yeah.
I'm just questioning whether a $9,000 investment.
Well, and when you look at all of these other works on here, I think that's the question too. It's like, yes, maybe we have this in the budget right now for this single work, but then does it limit us being able to also restore the rest of these artworks? So.
What is our current budget?
Somewhere around, let's just say over 50,000.
Yes,
I thought it was
over
about
50.
80, wasn't
Yeah, I
it?
believe so.
88,
It's
something
right
like that.
around.
I thought we had used some of that for the why am I spacing it? The black objects in the ponds.
Yeah, how much did we?
Yeah, but even after that, we have quite a bit, so.
Oh, okay.
I don't have an exact number as of today, but let me see.
If I need to.
That might be worth more consideration
Or
too.
to-
You know, how much do we have?
Yeah.
What's
Because
ahead
there
of
are a
us?
lot of ongoing restorations that are coming up and on the horizon, maybe prioritizing those.
Yeah, thanks, Barbara. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because it's real easy. You talk to my emotions, I want to keep everything, I
Sure.
want to restore everything.
Sure.
I grew up in Salem, I'm very attached to that piece, but.
Yeah. But if we could restore 4 or 2 for the price
Right,
of that,
yeah,
is it?
it's not, you know,
worth
if
it?
it was my $9,000, I'd
Yeah.
say, well, it's been nice to meet
That seems to be the major, you know, the biggest. The restoration that would require the most,
So
in
maybe
terms
we
of
need-
like it has to sit as its own, you know,
And
and really, it's major stuff they have to do to that.
And it could be something too, if you look through our project updates where in ongoing projects where I have attached the document with pretty detailed of what's going on. It could be something too, that we need to go through some of those to get a
Yeah.
better feeling for if we're comfortable spending this much money. You guys can choose as a commission to make a decision on this today. You don't have to make a decision on this today. I think it's just important that you have the information and the
Yes.
discussion is had.
It's on our radar.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe it's gathering a little bit more information. We're talking about how much is, you know, how much is in our budget? You know, finding that out, finding out what else needs to be restored.
These don't look like they're major things that need to be done, but maybe I'm wrong.
And
Robert's house, and from the library, it looks like it was, they had already restored that, right?
I mean,
Robert has these.
The fallen books piece, piece that we saw in storage over there.
Yeah.
I think that's already been restored.
it just probably, it just needs to have a pedestal,
Right.
which would take some investment. For instance, the Walden Stewart's mural by Blake Fontana.
Yeah.
Okay, if we wanna take that for instance, if we wanted to actually restore that
Yeah.
all around. To say we have a $90,000 in our budget, it would take all, if not more than that, if that thing needs to be completely restored. If really somebody needs to go there, take any
That's what-
peeling paint off and restore it, it could take about that, so. It's something, and that's just one mural, there's several that we have that could potentially need a little bit of focus, so it's just something to think about.
Well, so what's the next step though? I mean,
It's up
do
to
we
you
look at
guys.
all of these things that are on this list currently? Do we try to schedule a walk around sooner so that we can make a decision? I mean, we'll need to probably have that, the unicycles, if we decide to do it, then by the time the civic center is done, maybe.
Well, that's
Right now,
a
where-
while.
Where is it right now?
Yeah, so it's packed, it's actually got removed from the base and it's packed and stored, the inside list is, so. You don't need to make a decision on it today. Sam, I definitely take a chance to review, all of these ongoing projects. A new one that was recently added was the Salmon in the City stainless steel piece that someone pointed out, that one's getting rusty, that's a really big piece. It's not just one, it's
Is that the one at the
multiple.
condo, by the condos, that one?
No.
Or is it the ones that's
Across from the
running underneath?
convention center.
Okay. Okay.
And that could probably use an update as well, and I imagine the budget to do that would also be pretty large, so. Some of these things will want to, everybody will want to review and get a sense of. And that might help make a decision.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna just say, we don't need to go over these project updates at this time. We'll just, people will take a look at it.
And I just have one question. When you look at the budget balance, what's there, does that reflect the transfer of money from urban development for the 3 sculpture well
It
sites?
does not,
Okay, great.
it does not.
that's earmarked for that.
That,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's good.
great,
Yeah.
okay. Just a reminder that art fair is this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody goes, and I'll be at the neighborhood association.
Cool.
Which one? Which tent?
Neighborhood, there's gonna be a neighborhood associations
Oh,
tent,
perfect. Okay, I'll come
Saturday,
by.
okay. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.